Guys, Grace here, and I am on my week of taking over Pro Tips for Paras. Today we are talking about caregivers and just all the details of that. So for those of you who are needing assistance for caregivers, that can always be fun. So I started receiving caregiver funding last year, and prior to that I just had my mom doing most of my care, and then we decided that I was going to be independent, and so that's when I started using caregivers. Nobody told me that it was going to be quite as difficult as it is. It's always independence, woo, that's great, and you kind of focus on that and don't think about anything else. But so my jump in with caregivers was when I was actually going to the hospital for some treatments, and so I had to hire caregivers to look after me while I was in the hospital. And I actually had 66 people apply for the job because I was in Calgary, and obviously Calgary is a bigger center, so lots of options. So I was literally FaceTiming, doing interviews for caregivers, and I think I did about 25 or 30 FaceTime interviews. The tough part about doing interviews in general, especially FaceTime interviews, is that you have to try and get a feel of this person in the 20 or 30 minutes that you've got with them. And then you have to take that away and try and figure out, okay, are they going to be a suitable fit for me? Am I going to be able to stand them for 10 or 14 hours a day? Are they going to be reliable? There's a million questions that go through your head when you're trying to find caregivers. And it can be really difficult, especially if someone is representing themselves as something, and then when you start working with them, they're absolutely not what they were in their interview. And I have had many of those. But I guess what it comes down to is just trusting your instinct. This is something that I've had to learn the hard way. When I'm doing an interview, and I have to just listen to myself, and if I have that feeling in my gut that no, this is not the right person, then they're not the right person. You just have to trust that. And then when you start working with these people, what's important is to figure out what exactly you want from them. Setting guidelines not only for yourself but for them is so important. And something that I learned, again the hard way, is that you can't necessarily be best friends with every caregiver that you have. Often it will blur the lines, and then you don't get what you're looking for. So it can be awkward, but you have to say, no, I'm the employer and you're the employee, and at the end of the day, that's what it has to be. But finding caregivers in Calgary was super easy. Finding caregivers in Fernie, not so easy, because the kind of job pool that we're pulling from is significantly smaller. So that's always a challenge. It's always a challenge to find people who stay. And Fernie can be a challenge in and of itself, because people come here to ski. They come here for 6 months and then they leave. And finding caregivers is difficult as it is, but then you have to develop that bond with them. You train them, you put energy into showing them how you need them to operate, And then, a couple months down the line, they're saying, okay, bye-bye now. And you're hitting the restart button and suddenly life becomes difficult again. Those are the challenges of finding caregivers in small towns, or even just finding caregivers in general. Kind of always going through this cycle of, okay, you meet someone, you hire them on, you train them, they're great for a while, and then you lose them, or they don't work out, you have to fire them, and then all of a sudden you're back to square one. You're having your routines take probably double or triple the time. You have to schedule things differently so that you're allowing for the new people to learn, and then you build them up again and then they leave. It's always a struggle. I've had plenty of positive experiences with caregivers. I mean, Scott has been an amazing caregiver for me, and he didn't even start out as my caregiver. I mean, we were just friends, and we were just going skiing and enjoying life, and then it just kind of gradually went into being caregivers. And he's amazing. He knows what I need even before I ask for it. And those are special bonds when you get to that point where your caregiver knows you better than you know yourself sometimes. And that's the positives of having someone there with you. And I mean, it's another person who's experiencing your ups and your downs right along with you. I mean, having a caregiver with me 14 hours a day can sometimes be challenging, because sometimes I'm like, I just need to be alone. I just want my time to be myself, and to read and to be me. But again, that's where my really good caregivers will know when I need that time, and they let me have that time. They'll go and do other things, and then I'm allowed to be myself. But I never really feel like it's me plus someone else. I always feel like they're just a part of me. They're my extension. They're my body. And it takes special people. I've had some just awesome caregivers who just get that. They get that they're my hands and legs.
How many caregivers have you had?
For a while.
How many caregivers have I had?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think we're on 17 or 18.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell that to the camera?
And I've had 17 caregivers. 17 or 18 caregivers.
In how long?
Year and a half. Yeah. And I mean, some of it is transient, like we said, which is, I mean, it is what it is. Like, plans change and they have to move on. Other times it's because it was absolutely not the right fit. And that just happens. I mean, I remember the first time I had to fire someone, I just felt like the most horrible person on the planet. But when it comes down to it, it's my care and my safety and my everyday life, and those are things that I can't sacrifice. So if they're not the right fit, they're not the right fit. That's just the way it goes. It's also hard when they're with me 24/7, so they think that it's their job to advocate for me, when it's not necessarily the case. Like, I am fully capable of advocating for myself. They can, come behind me and back up and support what I'm saying and what I'm advocating for, but not their job to advocate. So that's always a struggle.
I think the biggest issue is people interjecting their own personal beliefs.
Should we have Scott in the...
No, I don't want to be on film. I get it, we're in an age of conserve and be environmentally friendly, but if the method calls for using a half a roll of toilet paper every time she goes to the bathroom, that's what has to happen, not use that same piece of toilet paper 2 or 3 times so that she gets an E. coli infection. It just...
But that's kind of the struggle nowadays that we've even just been finding in the last couple months, that because, like you said, we're kind of a hyper sensitive world now, and I mean, we have caregivers who are, of course, very environmentally conscious, which is awesome. But when it comes to taking care of me, that you can't reuse things. It's just like toilet paper, sanitary items. It's unfortunate that sometimes they're wasteful, like their packaging and other things. But when it comes to my health, sometimes you just have to do it. Just have to suck it up and do it the way that we need it to be done. Like bladder infections are a huge deal. And I mean, anyone with a disability who sits in a chair is going to understand that a bladder infection it's horrible for us. And for me, they last like 3 weeks, and sometimes 4 or 5 rounds of antibiotics before it'll actually resolve itself and go away. And 90% of the time it's from a preventable factor, like I was not wiped properly, or the same piece of toilet paper was reused, and now I've got an E. coli infection. So those things can be hard. It's like battling someone else's personality and their own beliefs. But when we do training, we just always say it's not about you. Like, it's harsh, but that's the way it is. You're doing care for someone else. You're helping them to live their life, and so you have to do it the way that they need it to be done, not the way that you think it should be done. And I mean, I've lived in this body for 23 years and have developed many ways of doing things and living my life so that I'm not constantly getting sick and I'm not in pain unnecessarily. And those are things that you have to be conscientious of. So being caregivers can be kind of a roller coaster. It's either really, really good or really, really bad. Thanks everyone for watching my rant on caregivers. Hopefully you found some useful information from this. Have a great day.